They said it was just a rumor, a forgotten footnote in history. But buried in declassified files and faded photographs lies the truth about Unit 731, Japan's secret biological warfare unit. Hidden from textbooks, this facility carried out human experiments too horrific to imagine, and the world chose to forget. But not anymore. What you're about to hear was meant to be erased. And once you know the truth, you'll never see history the same way again. In the snowy outskirts of Harbin, China, an abandoned compound lies silent. Overgrown with frost-bitten weeds and fenced off by rusted barbed wire, it looks like nothing more than the skeleton of a long-forgotten military base. But this place once held one of the darkest secrets of the 20th century. The world knew it only by a code, Unit 731. During World War II, the Japanese Imperial Army operated this covert facility under the guise of disease research. In truth, it was a biological weapons testing ground where human beings were used as test subjects alive, conscious, and without consent. Civilians, political prisoners, and even children were subjected to frostbite simulations, organ extractions without anesthesia, and exposure to deadly pathogens. Every experiment was logged, photographed, and catalogued with scientific precision. When Japan surrendered in 1945, Unit 731's atrocities were quietly buried. The scientists responsible weren't punished. Many were rewarded with immunity in exchange for their data by the United States. The crimes were never prosecuted at the Tokyo trials. And now the archives are crumbling, but the truth remains. Some believe those who vanished inside Unit 731 still haunt the compound. Others say the real horror is not the ghosts, but the silence that followed. After the war ended, Unit 731's officers destroyed most of the facility in a desperate cover-up. Fire consumed their labs, while remaining victims, those still alive, were reportedly executed. But they couldn't burn everything, not the bones, not the whispers. In 1946, a few brave Chinese villagers found charred fragments of documents, glass vials still sealed with brown residue, and a deep pit filled with skeletal remains. Some skulls were split clean open. Others had drilled holes meant for controlled exposure to gases. Local reports vanished. Witnesses were silenced. Why? Because the United States government in the early days of the Cold War struck a secret deal with the leaders of Unit 731. In exchange for their gruesome biological warfare data, the scientists were spared prosecution. Some even went on to prestigious positions in Japan's post-war medical institutions. They walked free. The victims remained buried. For decades, survivors' testimonies were ignored. Records were sealed and international focus shifted to Nazi war crimes. But Unit 731, forgotten on purpose. Even today, the Japanese government has never formally acknowledged what happened at the Harbin compound. School textbooks skip over it. But the haunted ground remains. Visitors have reported hearing faint cries in the wind, shadows darting past cracked windows, footsteps echoing from rooms long collapsed. Tease as if the building itself is trying to expose the crimes history tried to erase. In 1984, a Japanese journalist obtained a copy of a diary from a former Unit 731 doctor. It detailed experiments never mentioned before injections of seawater, live dissections, and exposure to plague bacteria, while victims were fully conscious. Still, the story barely made headlines. Even in the 2000s, survivors were labeled as liars. One woman who testified about watching her brother's organs removed without anesthesia was harassed until she withdrew from public view. The survivors are aging. Many have died without ever receiving justice or public acknowledgement. And those who participated, some lived long lives, respected in their fields, celebrated as scientists. But the most disturbing revelation? In 2003, a small research team discovered sealed storage units beneath a university hospital in Tokyo. Inside were preserved organs, labeled with prisoner numbers, no names, just codes. One of the tags read 731 to 115, male, age 9. The evidence was quietly reburied. Officials claimed academic value only, but whispers continue. Some believe data from Unit 731 formed the foundation for certain military bio-research still active today, hidden behind black budgets. Others say the researchers left behind more than just notes, that some experiments never ended. And if that's true, maybe we're not just remembering a horror from the past. Maybe we're living in its shadow,